Actually, can we do this right now? What's your fantasy card? Like, just fuck it. Like, people from the past, right? Or actually, not from the past. We'll make it somewhat realistic. Like, timelines kind of work out, right? Like, I'll give you mine. Mine's like Izzy Jones, Habib GSP, and then Henry Cejudo DJ, just to have
Mm.
three title fights.
Well, go ahead and throw two more in there if we're gonna go ahead and
Oh,
yeah,
fuck.
we're doing a main card.
Ooh, give me a
I
second.
can go ahead and give you a couple. I can give you mine real quick.
Okay, hold up. Let's do.
You're shell shocked. You know what
I'll
to do.
think about my other two while you go
Fucking
ahead.
scrub. All right, I want to go main event, bro. You've got to do Fedor versus Brock. Um,
I was thinking Fedor, but I couldn't think against who. I'll do Fedor Stipe. Fuck it.
Fedor Stipe. Fedor. Listen, man. I've been long on the stance that like Fedor is the goat, and it's one of those things like if you were not there, man, if you were not even there for some of because I was watching MMA right in the tail end of Fedor's prime. If you were not there, you won't get it. Um, and it's one of those things where it's like looking at just his resume, it does not do it justice. He's beaten more UFC champions than a guy like Stipe has. You know what I mean? Like for example, like, and he's never fought in the UFC.
It's crazy.
Like just the pure dominance at heavyweight, dude. That's why it's so insane because people are like, oh, Stipe's the goat. Stipe got knocked out by Stefan Struve. Not saying it's a slight against him, but at heavyweight in your prime, you will lose a couple times just because those dudes have so much power. He also got knocked out by DC. You know what I mean? Like he's lost a couple of fights. Fedor in his prime. Um, and I know this is not meant to go off into a go conversation because I'm gonna get my fancy card in a minute, but every single
Oh,
time
we
I
gotta
see
talk
people
about that, by the way. I had that on my topic list at some point.
yeah, every
We
single
gotta get
time
into
people
some
shit
shit.
on Fedor, it kind of pisses me off. It's like the guy was undefeated. He had a doctor stoppage, 17 seconds into a fight in 2000, right? He was unbeaten for the next 10 years. He went 31 and 0. He knocked out Brett Rogers, Andre Arlovsky, Tim Sylvia, Matt Lindland, Mark Hunt, Mark Coleman twice, Crow Cop, Noguera twice, Randleman, Goodridge, Fujita, Heath Herring, Sammy Schilt, Ricardo Arona. And then even after he went off near the end of his prime, he would lose 3 straight fights near the end in Strikeforce. He would beat Jeff Monson, Satoshi Ishii, Pedro Hizo, Fabio Maldonado, Frank Mir, Chael Sonnen, and just knocked out Rampage in 2019. The dude's a legend. So I'm going Fedor Brock in the main event. Brock gets smashed, but it's a fight I wanted to see back in 2010.
Fuck it, right?
So yeah, and then gonna go ahead and like co-main events.
Ooh, yeah, there we go. I forgot that was only your first one, man. You laid that out good, Josh.
I did, didn't I? Brock, I don't have to do any explanation for.
It's fucking Brock Lesnar. What else do you want?
Exactly. So we're gonna go ahead and go co-main event. This is an interesting dream fight for me. Not because I think there's a whole lot of competitiveness here. I don't know who wins it. I want to see like I tried to make mine realistic, right? This one's not very realistic.
I thought mine were somewhat realistic, right?
Yeah, no, this one's not realistic at all for me. For me, I'm saying. Um, I want to see Prime Vanderlei taking on Prime Jones. Prime
Oh,
Vanderlei Silva.
oh, I forgot to say,
Yeah.
dude, my Izzy Jones one
Pro-
would be a heavyweight, by the way.
The the Vanderlei from like 2006, right before he got knocked out by Hendo. Well, I guess getting knocked out by Krokop kind of sent him down that spiral. And like I think that was '05. So yeah, Vanderlei when he was sitting around like 210 pure pounds of like 210 pounds of pure muscle, just a complete monster. Vanderlei Silva in Pride during his prime is the scariest fighter to ever exist, and you cannot change my mind on that. The dude's nickname was the Axe Murderer, and like he actually like I'm like he looks like he could have killed people, dude. Like at one point he was before he got knocked out by Krokop, he was 31 and 5, only losses to Mark Hunt, Ricardo Arona, which he then, he would go in to avenge that loss. Tito Ortiz, Vitor, and then one of his first losses to a guy I can't remember back in 1997. But it wasn't until he hit Pride in 2000 where he really got into his prime, beat Hendo, Sakuraba 3 times. I'm not sure who Sakuraba pissed off to have him fight Vanderlei 3 times. He had a draw with Krokop, beat Rampage twice, so on and so forth. Fujita. That's a dream fight for me, right? And then John Jones, no explanation needed. I think Jones would win that fight, but holy shit, can you just imagine that one for a second? Like that would be pretty insane. For especially the first 2 rounds, Jones would be in a lot of trouble, I think. But
Love
that
it.
being said, Moving on. This is where it starts to get tough, just because there's a couple of like fights you can go ahead and throw in there, because those are like the two top ones for me. And now that like I'm kind of thinking about it more and more, I'm like a little bit conflicted. But I'm gonna go Bisping Yoel Romero, just because I really want to see that fight.
Ooh, Micah.
Um, and by the way, dude, like that's a fight where like people love to shit on Bisping. That's a very winnable fight for him.
That's
I'm
a
not
good
saying I'd
matchup.
pick him, but like, come on.
With two eyes or one eye?
Well, One Eye Bisping was the best Bisping, by the way. Like,
I've heard that. I've heard some stat about it. Funny enough.
well, I mean, yeah. Well, he lost. He lost. Started to lose visibility whenever he got knocked out by Vitor. Following that, he went on the best stretch of his career. Knocked out Rockhold, beat Hendo, so on and so forth. Beat Silva. If we're
How is he
talking
getting
like,
medically cleared? Isn't that crazy?
if we match up the Bisping from like 199 against the Yoel from 205, that'd be like UFC 205. I mean, that'd be insane. So that's one of them right there. That's just a fight I've always wanted to see. It makes me really sad they did not do it before he retired. But yeah, man. I mean, those are my top three, and now you can go ahead and go with your final two, and then I'll go with my final two.
Yeah, no, I want to do Fedor. I think Fedor or anybody in the UFC. I just want to see Fedor fight someone or someone in the UFC, right? In his better years, you know what I mean? Fuck. Actually, let's do like a prime Fedor and a prime Kane.
See, that one's interesting because Kane is very disrespected in the heavyweight go.
A lot of people have DC has him as a GOAT.
Yeah, and I think prime Kane's the second best heavyweight of all time.
Just the injuries.
Yeah, the injuries, and I think he beats DC. I think he beats Stipe. Man, it makes me so mad that we did not get to see Stipe.
Kane can beat a lot of people. I would pick Kane against a lot of people. I would pick Kane against a lot of people today.
Dude, same here. It makes me really sad that he only fought Ngannou and then retired. Like, you know what I mean? Like he could have. Like there were so many other fights.
And granted, he wasn't in his best moments either.
No, but at the same time, like he lost to Ngannou, and Ngannou's like this is the best stretch of Ngannou's career right now. Like if they could,
we don't know where Ngannou's going to be by the end of his career either.
Exactly, but man, like I would have picked Kane against so many dudes. I think Fedor beats him just because like Fedor in his prime is the best combination of everything. Like the best pure wrest. Like he could wrestle with the best of them. He had the best jiu-jitsu. Like he would outstrike the strikers like against Crow Cop. You know what I mean? And then he would jiu-jitsu the jiu-jitsu guys like Nogueira. He would go ahead and wrestle better than Coleman at the time, who was the best wrestler heavyweight. And he also had an amazing gas tank too. So I'd pick him. I think I'd probably pick Fedor just via stoppage, but at the same time, it'd be an insane fight.
Yeah, I guess we'll get into mine a little bit more since you talked about yours.
Yeah.
Another one that I had was Julia Budd, Ronda Rousey, ex-teammate. I swear to God, Josh. I think that it's like one of those crazy ones, but I know it doesn't make any sense, right? But it just sounds interesting, right? Okay. They're both in the Olympics, both judo. As far as MMA, I'm curious what would happen. I know Amanda Nunes, Julia Budd would be more of a fantasy, but for some reason, I'd rather have the Ronda one. It's kind of out there, but it's because I know it would literally be impossible to make. That's the main reason I love to see. And plus, that Ronda retired, right? DJ and Henry Cejudo, I mean, probably the two, greatest guys in their weight class right now as it stands, right? DJ, one of the greatest, right? Or the greatest. Some people have him as the greatest. Henry, one of the greatest athletes to ever be in the UFC, right? I think that's obviously we don't know who's, their whole retirement thing is like, kind of in the air, right? Revived the division, according to him. GSP Habib is kind of one that I was just kind of like, I would love to see what would happen, right? I think it's more of a what if rather than a fantasy. You know what I mean? I think that's the big thing for me. And then Jones, it's just kind of the hype that's right now around it, right? Because Jones, obviously, another guy who's goated. Izzy, another guy who's putting himself in a, by the end of his career, he could be putting himself in that same conversation. And if he wins the title here, and then the reason I say it's a heavyweight is, hypothetically speaking, what if Jones wins the heavyweight title? And hypothetically speaking, what if Izzy wins that light heavyweight title? And Izzy wants to go for a third title. I think there's just that fantasy is something crazy.
Yeah, and there were a couple of fights you mentioned there, and I was thinking Rousey won, Julia Budd won. That's interesting.
That went through for a little, but I thought it was cool in my head.
No, I mean I would agree with that. And in terms of Rousey, dude,
And then on my prelim, Josh,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
one of my prelim, I want Pride Felony Charles Bennett
Oh,
versus
man.
Mike Perry. The
Dude,
battle of the
holy shit,
insane.
that'd be incredible.
Dude, the shit talk. Can you imagine?
That's actually not to expose my final two real quickly, but that was one of my final two was Crazy Horse against Vanderlei. It makes me really upset that Risen did not do that when they both had both of them on the roster. And like in 2015, whenever Crazy Horse knocked out, I guess Felony knocked out Vanderlei's buddy, who he was like his protege, and then got on the mic and said a phrase I can't say on air. That he runs fast. I'm really upset they did not do that fight. I'm really upset they didn't do it because they both wanted it, and it's Japan. They could have done it open weight. You know what I mean?
It, right?
But yeah, dude, that's a guy. Low-key, that's a guy I really thought about reaching out to for episode 100 because I have him on Snapchat.
He probably would have said yes.
I don't know that he would have because I don't know, but he's lost like 10 straight fights.
Oh yeah, dude, he has more losses than wins now. It's kind of heartbreaking.
It's kind of heartbreaking, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, that sounds like him.
He's a legend, not like a legend for being,
Oh, but he's a legend of the game, dude. He's the type of guy that like we'll never see again.
Who's the equivalent? I'd say like a legend like Joe Lozon, right? Like Joe Lozon has been there from the beginning, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
A legend of the game, right?
Yeah, and yeah, I would have loved to see that. That'll be I'm gonna go and put that one on my prelims too. I'll go and stack that one on the prelim. And then my two other dream fights. I gotta go. You mentioned Rousey. I gotta go Rousey Cyborg just because thinking of what would have happened in Strikeforce before Rousey started to fall more in love with her striking. Whenever she was just pure, I'm gonna take your ass down. I'm gonna submit you. There's gonna be nothing you can do about it. Prime Rousey is the most underrated and also overrated fighter in MMA history. Because in her prime, everybody was like, dude, she could beat men. Like she wasn't gonna do it. People were saying it, and nowadays she's just shit on because of how she exited the sport. But dude, she was so good. Like especially in Strikeforce in those early UFC days before, like I say UFC pre-UFC 190, whenever she was just amazing in the clinch. She was so great in terms of control and actually like using all of her weight to go ahead and shift into positions and so on and so forth. And just her submission game was so great, dude. And I would have loved to see her against Cyborg back in like 2010, 2011. I'm not sure who I would have picked because Rousey started off as a featherweight. That's something that's interesting. And she ended up moving down whenever she joined Strikeforce. And I get why Rousey didn't fight her. She was like, yeah, you know what? You were on steroids. You built yourself up. If you want to go and build yourself up using steroids, you can go ahead and lose some weight and cut down to 135. And Cyborg was like, no, that's not fair. So that's why that fight didn't happen. So yeah, man. And then my final fight. You mentioned Joe Lozon. I gotta go Joe Lozon, BJ Penn. That fight should have happened back in 2007 whenever Lozon knocked out Jens Pulver. Do I think Lozon would have won? No. But Joe Lozon never fighting for UFC title, getting shafted out of it twice is the saddest thing to me. Like it's one of the things that like never like it should have happened. He should have happened twice, right? He should have gotten after he beat Jens because Jens got a title shot after losing to Joe Lozon for getting knocked out by Joe.
Jens was a champion too.
Yeah, and then he ended up he should have gotten a title shot after he submitted. Oh man, I feel really stupid for forgetting his name right now. Oh my god, I feel so dumb. He was on a complete tear. It was like in the UFC 140s. He had like the kind of like the Kevin Randleman look going on where like he dyed his hair like yellow like in tribute. Melvin Gillard. I feel so stupid it took me so long. But Melvin Gillard was on a tear at the time. And like if Melvin won, he was gonna get a title shot. Joe ended up getting screwed. Joe Lowe's on BJ Penn 2007. Book it. At the time, Joe would have been, I think he was 16-3. He started off his UFC career 3-0. If he beat Kenny Florian, he would have gotten the title shot back in like 2008. But he should never had to fight Florian to even get it. So, whatever, man. That's my top 5 for like my fantasy card.
Dude, I think we had some pretty sick cards.
We do. We had some pretty sick cards in there.